All right. Today we're going to be talking about some reading strategies and how to help your students understand what they read. We had a professional development conversation where a lot of the teachers were coming to me telling me they were having difficulties understanding, their students were understanding what they read. So we talked about what good readers do. So in order to be considered a good reader, you have to develop good reading habits. And these habits are called strategies. So we're going to talk about 5 of those strategies today that are easily implemented into whole group or small group reading. All right, so our purpose today, the results of the teacher survey said many teachers were upset about their students' comprehension. That's what we're going to learn today. We're going to do 5 of them. We're going to do a couple of activities, and in your packets you have all of the worksheets that we're going to talk about today so you can reproduce them and use them in your classroom. All right, so the reading strategies that we're going to talk about today are making connections, asking questions, determining importance, making inferences and predictions, and mental images or visualization. All right, so the first page, you have 3 different types of text connections. Making connections is one of the easiest things for readers to do and is the easiest to implement in class. It could be in a worksheet, it could be an exit slip, or it could just be in general conversation where you ask them, what kind of connections are you making? 3 major ones: text to self, where they make a connection to themselves, text to text, comparing 2 different texts, and text to world. The strategy can be written again, or it can be used in a whole group, small group conversation. So here's the worksheet that you have on the first. Easy, if you just reproduce this, you can cut it up, put it in a center, put it as an exit slip. Kids can easily fill this out in 2 seconds, and you'll be able to assess their understanding about making connections. Some things you need to ask yourself as a reader: are you familiar with the topic or event? Have you had any similar experiences? How would you feel if this happened to me? Is there something about this character that reminds me of myself? These are just a couple of questions you can use to prompt some answers for text connections. The next one we're going to talk about is asking questions. All right, good readers have the ability to ask questions of themselves, okay, before, during, and after their reading. If you encourage students to ask themselves questions about the text before, during, and after, they are going to increase their comprehension. Okay, they need to ask themselves what do they understand, what don't they understand, what are some questions that you have about reading, what am I wondering. Great skill is just give them a post-it note. They can slap a post-it note into a page. I understand this, I don't understand this, I have questions about this. That's a great way to make sure that they're asking questions while they're reading the text. And they need to make sure that they can decide, is the answer going to be in the text, or do I actually have to think about it, use my schema, use my prior knowledge to figure it out. All right, you have this also in your packet. This is just a general for, since you're younger grades, kindergarten, 2nd, 3rd, just to start asking questions of the text, just talking about general text components: who, what, where, when, why, how. Then they can find the answer in the text and tell you what page it's on. Just gives them a brief introduction to trying to find information in the text. All right, the next one we can talk about is determining importance. This is also easy for you to create worksheets for. It is a more difficult skill for students because it requires them to choose details that are the most important to remember. What I like to tell my students is, while you're reading, if I'm asking you to determine importance, think about, would Miss S create a test question about this? Is this something that would be important for me to learn if it was on a test? And always asking yourself, what's the author trying to tell me? Where is he trying to lead me in the text? So you want to think about your key concepts, your main idea, what's important, what matters, one thing you want to notice, one thing you remember. On your next page, you have your bookmarks that kids can use in order to remember how to determine importance. Good readers do not memorize books. They make decisions on what's most important and gives them 2 think about it points that they can use while they're reading independently, or if you have them reading a small group, whole group book. Okay, that's the worksheet that you have. Okay, we have, you must remember information versus cool and neat. That's another thing that kids needed to decide. What's really important versus what's interesting. Okay, if something's interesting to them, might not be important to the text or to the main idea. Inferences and predictions. Making inferences and predictions is a great way to help students comprehend what they are reading. Inferences uses what they already know, background knowledge, schema, and the clues the author gives them in order to make a decision. Okay, you have to ask yourself, what do you need to figure out? What's the author trying to tell me? For making predictions, what do you think is going to happen next? If you flip your page, you have a small little worksheet on inferencing. It's inferencing occupation. So if you flip that sheet, okay, Jen, if you could do number 1, that would be great. Alyssa, if you could do number 2, that would be awesome. All right. So Jen, you're doing number 1. I have quite an exciting job that allows me to work with exotic animals. Okay. And Alyssa, you're doing that. You're an expert and you know all about teeth.
Oh.
So I will give you a few moments to work on that. Remember, for this, you're trying to figure out what is their occupation based on the clues that the author is giving you, and also providing you with the clues that helped you. Okay, Jen, you want to go first?
Sure.
All right. If you could read number 1 for me and then tell me what the occupation is.
I have quite an exciting job that allows me to work with lots of exotic animals. I work hard from the early morning to the end of the day because a lot of critters depend on me. I'm in charge of feeding animals, cleaning habitats, and making sure all the animals are happy and healthy. What is this person's occupation? How do you know? So this person is a zookeeper.
Okay, I agree. You are correct. It is a zookeeper. How did you know that?
The person works with exotic animals, and that depends on him or her, and he or she is responsible for feeding, cleaning, and taking care of many animals.
Okay, so you already have a knowledge of what a zookeeper does. They take care of many animals. They're not a dog or a cat usually. They are usually exotic animals, and if you have a lot of them, you're a zookeeper. All right, Alyssa, how about yours?
Number 2 was, I'm an expert on all there is to know about your teeth. My job is to help you keep your teeth clean and healthy. Besides your mom and dad, I am also here to remind you to brush and floss your teeth. What is this person's occupation and how do you know? So this person's a dentist.
Correct. He or she is a dentist.
I used the first clue, which was teeth, so it had to be either dentist or orthodontist or something like that.
Okay.
And so if the person knows a lot about teeth and they focus more on keeping teeth clean and healthy and reminding you to brush and floss, then it's definitely going to be a dentist.
Awesome. That's great. So you used what you already knew about a zookeeper and a dentist, plus the clues the author gave you to figure out what their occupation. Those are simple little small group center activities that you can use to have your students start working on the idea and the concept and the skill of making inferences, okay? Making predictions. It's pretty simple. All you're doing is reading what the author gives you and deciding what do you think is going to happen next, okay? Once again, using the clues from the author, using what you already know, and you are making predictions for what's happening next. So here you go. In your 2 packets, you have these 2. Reading for the future, okay, making your prediction, and also making a good inference. These are easy reproducibles that you can hand out to your kids. All right, creating mental pictures. Creating mental pictures is an excellent way for students to comprehend what they are reading. Okay, students have to use the words to create mental pictures. Usually a lot of sensory words, things that you can hear, smell, taste, touch, feel, in order for you to create that mental picture. Again, the kids are using their background knowledge in order to help them create these pictures. So here on the left, you have a picture of this. It's pretty simple. You can give them a short little story, something easy to do. They can close their eyes, picture something in their mind. For this instance, you could use this with a story, and you can have them close their eyes and think of one setting versus another, or you can just have the students listen while you read something and just draw what you're picturing in your mind. Okay. Okay. On your last page, you have this worksheet here, which is a very simple visualization assessment that you could use for your students. It could take up 2-3 minutes if you have some extra time. Here's a poem about Halloween by Barbara Hales that I borrowed from her to use for this presentation. And if you could just read the poem, draw a little picture of what you pictured in your mind, or I can read it to you. You could close your eyes. Those are 2 different options. And answer the question at the bottom. How does visualizing an image in your mind help you understand the poem? Okay, so here I have, I'll read to you while you're reading, just so I can read it out loud. The bald-headed ghost drank some witch's brew, and on top of his head, a strange thing grew. It was pointed and tall and black as a bat, with stringy long hair where his head was flat. The sad little ghost didn't want any hair or a black pointed hat, so he said, "Witch beware." Then he chanted some words with a spell-casting switch and gave Halloween night a bald-headed witch. Okay, so you're just visualizing, making a picture, creating an image to help you understand the poem. All right. And I'll give you a few more seconds because I know you're quick drawers. All right, Jen, what did you draw for your picture?
I wrote the words "witch beware," and then I tried to draw a witch, and with no hair.
With no hair?
Yes.
All right, there you go. So you took what you know about witches, you took what you got from the author, the words they use, the sensory words they use. What did you draw, Alyssa?
Oh, I drew, originally I drew a bald-headed ghost and then added some of the stringy hair that I didn't want. Kind of looks like a minion. And then I drew a witch with no hair, but I still gave her the pointy hat, and she was saying, "Ah," because she didn't want to be bald.
Alright. So an activity like this just allows your students to create some kind of mental image from what they read. You could take it, look over it briefly as kind of a brief assessment just to see if they're getting the concept. If not, you can always go back and revisit this skill for students to use. It's important to know if you're not visualizing or you don't picture the events in the story, you're gonna get bored. I get bored when I don't picture events in a story, and I like to create mental images, so practicing this would be a really good idea. While you are reading the poem, it's very simple. Just ask somebody, what kind of connection did you make to the poem? Okay, you can always go back to building your connection, make it an anchor chart, hang it in front of your wall, has sentence starters for the younger kids if they need some kind of just a fill-in for a basic. I know with this poem, Halloween, talking about a witch and a ghost reminds me when I was younger, how I would dress like a witch for Halloween. So I don't know if you made any other connections to this poem.
The bald-headed ghost I pictured as Casper.
Okay, so making connection to a movie that you've seen before. It's a good connection. I also, when I think about the Witch's Brew, it makes me think about Shakespeare's that play where the witches are toiling and tumbling.
It makes me think of that movie Hocus Pocus.
Yeah, I was thinking
Right?
that too.
I do like Hocus Pocus. That's a good
The brew.
one. All right, so here are some sources that I use that are some easy access for reproducibles. You can go to Scholastic, Read, Write, Think, Differentiated Literacy, The Daily Five, which is a great book that I have. I've already made some worksheets that you can reproduce. Just come and see me. I also took some graphic organizers from the 40 Graphic Organizer book to build comprehension, which I already have worksheets that I can easily hand to you for reproducing. And also during the independent reading and classroom assessment for learning, I have these books if you'd like to take a look at them, if you want to read from them. I also have the reproducibles printed, so all you have to do is just come and take a couple copies if you want to start implementing them into your classroom. All right, and that's the end. What I gave you, the last page that you have is just a worksheet for you to take back to your PLC learning community. What I would like for you to do is just take the worksheet back, talk about what we talked about today, see if they're interested in using any of those reading strategies. If you could have them answer just a couple questions, hand it back to me so I can get some feedback, that would be great.
Thank you. Thank you for all of these worksheets. They're going to be very useful.
You are very
Thank
welcome.
you.